Hi everyone, thanks for joining me at Stampin' Storytellers. I have a 3-card free online class that I will do right now in this video. It is using the Inspiring Iris stamp set. This is in our 2019-2020 annual catalog and it's available right now. I know we have a few backorder items that just can't be helped because we have a lot of popular items as well as shipping delays due to this pandemic. But right now you can order this Inspiring Iris stamp set from our catalog and you can shop my online store at stampinstorytellers.blogspot.com. Use this host code and if your order is over $35 you will receive one make and take from this video, and if your order is over $70 it's my birthday month and I'm giving away a package of gold gilded gems. They are from the Ornate Garden Suite. And let's get started. So this is the first card we will make using Blushing Bride and soft sea foam along with a little bit of basic gray. So to make this card we'll start with a Blushing Bride card base, a layer of basic gray that's 5 1/8 by 3 7/8, and a layer of Blushing Bride that is 3 3/4 by 5, and I've embossed it with the tin tile embossing folder. Then I just have a scrap of Whisper White and a narrow 1/2-inch strip of soft sea foam. And this is one of the stitched rectangle dies that we're going to use. And you'll also need a little bit of silver metallic thread. So we'll start by stamping on our scrap of Whisper White. And we'll need Blushing Bride ink and soft sea foam. Now I'm going to use the watercolored or the watercolor look image for the irises that is in this Inspiring Iris stamp set. So we'll ink that up, and the die that we're using for my scrap at least, I'm just going to center it and we're going to cut it out just like this. So whatever your scrap piece is, it just needs to be, I think this is about 2 1/4 inches. So I'll stamp my iris tops there first. With this one, I find it's easier to do the top first just because then I can easily line up the stems. Just like that. And then while I have that out, I'm going to grab a layer for our inside that will just be Whisper White that's 5 1/4 by 4, and I'm just going to stamp the same thing again on the inside of our card. Maybe I'll grab a scrap. And stamp this just on this edge here. So this will be for the inside. Then we'll come back to our scrap that we're going to die cut, and stamp this is going to go right across it. So we'll stamp our thanks in, I don't have that mounted anymore. Nope. Where did it go? Oh, here. It's on this block. This little thanks we're going to stamp in Blushing Bride on our soft sea foam cardstock. And I'm going to leave a little bit extra room on that side because when we overlay this, I want it to be centered in our die cut. So we can adhere that and I'm just going to lay that so that it covers the very bottom of our stems and goes all the way off the side. So I'll just trim this one off, and now I can go and die cut this and just center it. So I want to leave a little bit of white underneath our sentiment and then an equal amount at the top. So I'll die cut this. And now we have that nice stitched border along our whole piece instead of just gluing this over top after we had this already die cut and you glued this layer over top, then you wouldn't have the stitches on your green strip. So I liked that look. Then we can bring in our embossed layer, and I'm going to use Basic Gray, and I'll close these now. And an oval makeup brush. And I'm just going to go lightly just to give it a more rustic look. So get off a lot of that first layer so that it's not so dark. And then just lightly go over, and it really brings out the dimension in that embossing folder. And I'll just do these sides. So you really let the brush do the work, and it just accentuates that embossing. Now we can adhere our card together. So we'll fold our card base in half. And adhere, I won't do that yet. We need to put our metallic thread on. So I can adhere our Blushing Bride layer to my Basic Gray. Then I'll just put a glue dot on one back side and take my metallic thread and stick that on the edge just so that I don't have to hold it down. And then I can just start wrapping this around. And all random, but I want to keep it within about an inch of each other. Layer. And then I can stick the other end on that same glue dot and trim that off. And then you don't have to worry about your ends coming undone. Then I'll adhere this layer to our card front. And I'll pop this layer up on dimensionals. And put that right on the bottom corner. And then we can adhere our inside layer. That wasn't straight. There we go. So there is our first card in Blushing Bride, Soft Seafoam, and Basic Gray. Now we will move on to this card using Soft Suede and Crumb Cake. So for this card, I have an Early Espresso card base. We can fold in half. A layer of Very Vanilla, that's 5 1/4 by 4 for the inside. A layer of Soft Suede, that's 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. A layer of Crumb Cake, that is 5 by 3 3/4. And then I have the second and third largest stitch scalloped rectangles from the Stitch So Sweetly dies. The largest one in Crumb Cake and the next one in Very Vanilla. And then a 1/2 inch strip of Very Vanilla for our sentiment. Then we're also going to be using the Very Vanilla metallic edge ribbon that has the gold metallic edge on it. So to start, because I want this to dry, we're going to color it with our Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to use the dark Crumb Cake, and you need about 10 or 11 inches And I'm just going to use the brush end and brush along the one side. And you don't want to touch it right away or you'll get all the blend alcohol ink on your fingers. I've learned that the hard way because then I had alcohol ink everywhere. So color it so that it's all kind of the same shade. And then just flip it over and you can see if it's soaked through evenly, or if there's a little spot that you need, then you can just touch it up. Then we'll let that dry while we do our stamping. I'll just trim that. So I'll just leave that there to let it dry. Then on our stitched scalloped rectangle, we're going to take crumb cake ink and this little border image here that's in the same Inspiring Iris stamp set, and stamp that along the edge, trying to get it straight, just on the edge of our die. And then while I have this on the same block, I'm Wishing You the Best in crumb cake ink, and I'm just going to stamp that with room on either side. Then we will take these same the watercolor looking image. I'll clean this and my stems. And I'm going to stamp both in crumb cake. Do my stem there, and this one. Because I'm doing the same color, I'm not too worried about having them line up perfectly on these stems, which is why I did the stems first. But it looks just as good when you do monochromatic. I'm going to do the same thing for our inside layer. And just to mix it up, I'll do the stems second, but both ways work. And then I'm also going to add just the end of this border piece, just on the very edge, to add some interest to the inside of our card. So there's most of our stamping. Next, on our crumb cake layer, I'm going to use the other watercolor flower images, this single rose looking image, and then the leaves, to add, kind of make your own designer series paper. So I'll ink this up a few times. And you don't need to worry about this center. That's where our other stamped layer is going to be. But you want to make sure that you have lots of flowers on the outside. Then we'll use the leaf image and just line it up and fill in some leaves. Maybe some here. And this one. That's probably enough. Sometimes less is more. If you think you need more, then maybe stop and really look at it. Then I'm using the little dot that is meant to be the center of this little flower image. We're not using this, but just the little dot. And I'm going to ink it and stamp it 3 times before re-inking, just to fill in those other little sections and to give it some different color depth. That looks good. And then just to make sure that you have it all filled in, that's where our layer is going to go. So that looks good for now. Then I can start to adhere my layers. So I'll adhere this one just centered on this layer. And then center that crumb cake layer on your next soft suede layer. Now that I did that, this looks crooked. There we go. Then I can adhere our Very Vanilla layer. And that whole card front layer to our Early Espresso card base. And our inside. And now with this sentiment that we have punched, I'm just going to use my tailored tag punch and cut each end to make a banner. A little bit more. And adhere that on. And then we can get back to our ribbon. There we go. So this will be dry now, and it kind of gets it a weird texture. It makes it stiff, and it makes it even easier to tie a bow. So I'll just do a little bow here. And it really changes the look of that ribbon. And I'll trim my ends. And glue that on using a glue dot just to the edge of my tag there. So there's our second card using Early Espresso, soft suede, and crumb cake, and only using one color of ink. And now for our third card, another one that's totally different, is using Blackberry Bliss and Mossy Meadow and a little bit of gold metallic thread. This card also uses the Ornate Thanks stamp set. This is part of the Ornate Garden suite that is an early release from our 2020 catalog that comes out in June, along with the Inspiring Iris stamp set. And one other new product is this ornate floral embossing folder, and it gives little tiny flowers with some greenery there, but it's really detailed and it's really nice to work with. So we'll stamp on a layer of Very Vanilla that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, I think. Let's see. Oh, 2 3/4 by 4 1/2 piece of Very Vanilla, and I'll start with my stem first. Oh no, I won't. I'll start with the outline image first. So we're going to stamp that in Early Espresso ink and stamp it 4 times across. So I'll start at one end, and depending on how separated you have them, one will go off each end, I think. Something like that. Then I have, maybe I didn't do that high enough. Let's flip that over. I'm going to do them closer to the top. Oh, and then I have ink on that side. Here's an extra one. Sorry about that. I had to restart a movie from the beginning. So I'm going to stamp these closer to the top so that I have room for my sentiment. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm using Blackberry Bliss for the flower image. And this just really easily fills in. It's not meant to be perfect. It really gives you that watercolor look as well. And it's even textured. So it gives nice variety of color that it's not just a solid image. And then for the stem, I'm going to use Mossy Meadow. And this is the same. It really gives you that nice watercolor look. That one was a little off, but that's okay. Then I'm going to use the Thanks from that Ornate Thanks stamp set, and I'll stamp that in Early Espresso right at the bottom. Right there. And then also from that stamp set is a little script that says From All of Us, and I'll do that one in Blackberry Bliss, and you kind of overlap a little bit to make it look like it's one stamp. So I have that image there. And then while we're on, still have all of our inks out, I'll do the same on just one of the flowers on the inside just to tie that design in. So I'll do my outside image, then the flower top, and the stem. And that's all of our stamping. Now you'll want to get your gold metallic thread, and we'll do the same thing as on our last card. I'll just add a glue dot about 1 inch in on one of the ends. It could be in the middle too. But then stick the end of your metallic thread and wrap that around. That's probably good. Then stick that onto that same glue dot. It's a little bit. There we go. And trim that end off. Then we'll take our Blackberry Bliss card base and fold that in half. So all my card bases are just half a sheet of cardstock, whether you cut it the long way or the short way, so you can have your card open this way or my other cards open standing up. I like to cut them all the same because then I don't have to have 2 different versions sitting on my desk. And I always have one that works. So I'll adhere all my layers together, and that was a quick 3 card class. All the cards are very different using the same stamp set. So we'll adhere that layer on. And adhere our inside layer. And I'm going to adhere our very vanilla layer for the front of our card using dimensionals. And we'll just center that on our layer there. So there's our third card, again using the Inspiring Iris stamp set in our annual catalog right now. I'll bring in these other cards. There we go. So I have 2 Blackberry Bliss, 2 Early Espresso, and 2 using Blushing Bride. Thanks for joining me. If you'd like to purchase any of these items, please shop my online store at stampinstorytellers.stampinup.net, or you can visit my blog, and the link is in the top right hand corner. My blog is stampinstorytellers.blogspot.com. Make sure to share this video with your friends. That really helps me get more viewers and let everybody know that crafting is so much fun. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you soon. Bye.